Hi, Doug.
G'day.
Thanks so much for having us
No
today.
problem.
So, of course, as I like to start these sort of interviews, is to ask a little bit more about what the Smith family does for anybody that doesn't know.
Great, thank you. So the Smith family is a 102-year-old charity, been around for a long time, and for a lot of our history we were focused on the welfare relief. For about the last 30 years we've been focusing on addressing educational inequality and really looking at trying to address and reduce the barriers for children and young people that inhibit realising their potential by making the most of their education. So effectively means we do three things. We provide financial support for low-income families for education-related expenses. We engage parents and carers because they play a really important role in their child's education, and sometimes they themselves haven't had a great education experience or haven't completed an education. So just helping them understand the importance of their role and giving them tools and tips and all those sorts of things. And then lastly, we run a range of programs in about 800 disadvantaged schools across Australia. And to bring that all together means we reach about 67,000 students through our Learning for Life program. So that's particularly the Learning for Life program that's important for us, but we also do early years programs and a range of other programs.
Fantastic, yeah. Oh, what an incredible outreach, the fact that you're working on a national scale. As you said, education is so important and amazing that you have the tools to help those parents that might not have had it as well. And education is something that's been very important to you throughout your career and the roles that you've taken on in the charity space, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the first in my family to get a tertiary education, so I know why that's important. And so it's been a real passion for me in terms of volunteering in schools, my daughter's schools, but also volunteering in other schools and mentoring programs and participating in a whole range of other kind of education related things. So in my spare time, I sit on a board that's a not-for-profit school for disengaged young people and engage in universities and a range of other things because it's a wonderful way for people to have more choices in life. So the more young people that receives education, the better, and creating more and more pathways for that is what we need to focus on.
Wonderful. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit more in a moment's time about how you balance your CEO role and all your board appointments. But for anyone that doesn't know about your story and how you came to be, I think it's about just over 3 years now as the Smith family. How did you get to where you are now? What was the things that shaped your career before, I guess, becoming a CEO and the things that led you to this point?
So my whole working life has been in the not-for-profit sector. And as you know, Alexandra, the not-for-profit sector is this wonderfully diverse sector of so many different types of organisations. And I've worked in social enterprise, philanthropy, community development, community services, disability, aged care, very diverse. And so that's been incredibly enriching for me and really kind of informed my career path, if you want to call it that. And in that have had roles that have been operationally focused on strategy and the like. So all of that's kind of gone into the melting pot for kind of bringing me here to the Smith family. But the thread, I guess, through my career has been consistently a focus on people who experience social and economic exclusion in whatever form. That's been a real passion of mine, and I feel real privileged to be able to play a small role in supporting those people with positive futures.
Yeah, fantastic. And the breadth of experience that you've gained throughout those careers has, I guess, enabled you to be able to do as much as you do at the Smith family, because you just mentioned so many programs and offerings that you have here. How do you balance all of that? You're often on the road, you're often going to see all your other offices around the country. It's a lot.
It is a lot, but the simple and complex answer is you have a great team. So, one of the things that I've always had as a priority in my kind of leadership and management is just making sure you've got great people around you who've got same sort of commitment, great expertise that you don't have, that kind of rounds out your expertise. And so that's what we've got at the Smith family. We've got a great executive team, a great board, 1,000 committed team members across the organisation, and another 20,000 volunteers. So having wonderful people absolutely matters, I think, but also having a good kind of sense of direction in terms of where you're going. And one thing that I think a lot of organisations are learning about at the moment, and we're certainly learning about, is having a direction, but the constant kind of iteration and adaptation of that kind of strategy and plan, because our world is so changeable. So that's been a big learning for us. And for that, you need, I think, a team that's really open to change, that's opening to looking outwards from the organisation, to really understanding needs in the community, and for us as a fundraising organisation, the needs of our donors and supporters and volunteers, because we want to engage them in a way that's consistent with how they live their life today. So it's a combination of those things, I think, that help you provide the support and leadership to an organisation like Smith Family.
Sounds like a very organic structure. It's always changing and adapting.
And life is like that. Yeah. So organisations need to be like that as well. I mean, it can't be chaos. You've got to create some predictability, of course, because team members need direction and focus and support. But you do need to be responsive to your environment. I mean, there are many examples of organisations who haven't been, who no longer exist because they've not been able to adapt effectively to changing environments.
And how does that work, getting that relationship with the board right as well as something that will obviously influence the ability to be able to pivot and adapt as and when you need to. What are some of the things that you think attest to having that really strong bond between the CEO and the board?
Yeah. So I think we talk a lot at the Smith family about two things: open and honest communication and two-way communication. So, I think it's really incumbent on executives and leaders to be fully transparent and open with boards. Sometimes, I think we're all familiar with organisations who maybe want to hide things when they go wrong. That is the single worst thing you can do in an organisation, because those missteps and failures are just opportunities to learn and improve. But, early warning of things and learnings and insights and risks is incredibly important. So I think that's fundamental. That kind of culture really matters, particularly in terms of supporting boards. But also you need alignment between a board and an executive team. It doesn't mean you need sameness, you need diversity, but you really do need alignment in terms of direction, where we're all going, because you can chew up a lot of time and energy in misunderstanding. So getting that alignment matters. But then also, and this is a really important part of leadership's work, is really around risk. So thinking about your risk appetite, but thinking about your critical risks and those things that you're mitigating. So that's risk and strategy are incredibly important things for leaders in organisations to be aligned and constantly talking about and learning about as well.
And have you found that obviously sitting on a number of boards, that's really helped you and enabled you to understand how it works both ways, I guess?
Absolutely, yeah. For sure. I've been sitting on boards for a long time, 20 odd years now. But you're absolutely right. Your non-executive work really informs your executive work, because when you're an executive and a leader in an organisation, I think one of the most important things is to put yourself in the shoes of your board members and directors and think, okay, what information do they need, in what form? There's no better way to understand that than sitting in a board and having that kind of mindset. So, I get a lot of benefit out of doing that. I mean, obviously you've got to manage conflicts and all those things, but they're all manageable with good systems in place. But from my perspective, that's been a really helpful thing in my in my leadership and management journey, to have those different roles at the same time. It can be a juggle, but my experience is we've all got so much time. It's a question of what we prioritise and how we use it.
Fantastic. Thanks. That's great advice for anyone that's maybe, in the process of stepping up into a more senior position or thinking about taking on a board role at the same time as their leadership role. So the Smith family it's always adapting, it's changing. I recently saw that you've launched a program to support kids through like a work experience.
Yes, cadetship to careers, that's right. So many new developments for us as an organisation and our strategy. We've really been leaning into the career space because based on our research, which tells us that young people, particularly young people who experience disadvantage, don't have the opportunity to make the most of careers education, and the quality of careers education is quite variable nationally. So that's something we've been stepping up to. And given the wonderful support we receive from the business community, that's been a way for us to bring more businesses into that kind of careers work effectively. And there's a lot of good evidence that says that the more touch points that a young person has with an employer, the more likely it is that they'll make a really positive transition. So careers is a real priority for us, doing a lot of work on that. Digital inclusion has become a particular priority for us. 30% of those 67,000 students on Learning for Life go home every night to a home without a digitally connected laptop. I think historically we would have thought that was a nice to have, but today for a child's education, to just participate in a contemporary world, you need that sort of resource at home. So that's another priority for us, to ensure that more and more young people have access. And this year we'll connect up about over 3,000 households from our Learning for Life families with that sort of technology and access and support as well.
Wonderful. wonderful. That's fantastic. So many achievements and great initiatives that we've talked about. What are some of the things that potentially have been a struggle for the organisation, or you have sort of felt as a leader throughout the last few years? Especially through COVID, I think there's been some obstacles that have been hard to overcome. And has there been anything that you've kind of come across that you've been able to, I guess, work through positively?
Yeah, no, look, I think for us, in terms of thinking about our team, we're learning a lot more about flexibility. As I talk to the team across the country and get out and visit colleagues and say, why are you here at the Smith family? What keeps you connected? It's always our purpose, our culture, and flexible ways of working. So for us, that means that we can just attract and retain great people. Right. We can't obviously compete with corporate sector and government on remuneration, but there's other things that we can do. And so that's been a real benefit for us. But of course, doing that means you just learn a lot about how to do that well. Because it's kind of new territory for all of us. I mean, this whole hybrid way of working is something that the Smith family was starting to do pre-COVID, so we were well set up, but now doing it at scale. And it's such a historic change in work practices for many countries and industries and the like. So, we're learning more and more about that, like a lot of workplaces. But we have this kind of try, test and learn approach in the Smith family, and not make big bets, but step things through and kind of learn and build over time. So that's something that we're kind of growing into and learning more about. But that's just a great way to, as I said, have wonderful people on the team.
Absolutely, it's many studies have shown that has improved output and satisfaction across many different industries. So it's great that you guys are being able to implement that here.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Absolutely, got to try something, and you never know if it's going to work. But so that's a fantastic initiative that you have here, which is great. And what are some of the other things that you think makes the Smith family a fantastic place to work, other than your awesome hybrid working?
So I mentioned culture. Every organisation is on a journey in terms of their culture. Our culture isn't perfect, but we've just been doing a culture review and a culture roadmap and strategy for the organisation. And there's some fantastic kind of building blocks that we've got that we're excited to be building on. It's kind of open, warm, collaborative, purpose orientated, and when people join the organisation, that's always the things that they talk about. But of course, the way we live, the way the people that we support, the way they live their lives is also changing. So we're leaning more into stronger focus on accountability, performance, productivity, all really important areas of growth for us. And I think, again, many workplaces are thinking about the same thing as well, particularly in a hybrid sort of context. So that's an exciting new opportunity for us. I mean, another big area of development for us is in the tech space in terms of digitisation and cyber resilience. So cyber and a data, great opportunity to use data intelligently to kind of inform our work, be it with supporters or with students and families, but it has a risk with it as well. So we're learning a lot about how to mitigate that risk more and more as those threat actors become more and more creative in terms of what they do, which is constantly changing. And of course, your greatest risk and your greatest asset in that is your people. So equipping them to be kind of a first line of defence is really important for us in cyber. Obviously digitising more and more of our work. So we know that if we digitise, we can meet people how they want to live their life, students and families, but also our supporters. But of course, that means we've got to build new skills in the organisation to digitise and to deliver in a different way. So that's another big priority for us that we're learning more and more about.
Circling back, I'd love to find out a bit more about how you manage to balance the work that you do at the Smith family as CEO and your board commitments. And of course, you have a family outside of all of this as well.
How do I balance it? I mean, a couple of things. So one, if you're doing things that you love, you're doing things that give you energy. They don't deplete the reserves. So that's kind of one thing for me. So I'm very lucky, I think, to have the opportunity to choose the things I do, being involved in a sector that's all focused on purpose. I think it's a privilege. So that's one thing that kind of helps me in terms of balance. The other is obviously having real disciplines about things that keep me well, healthy, mind, money, soul, all those sorts of things. So I exercise. I've got great family and friendship networks. That's really important, who support me and encourage me, but also challenge me and call me out when I need to be. And that's great. You need that. You need those things as well. And then I think the other thing is I'm pretty disciplined and rigorous with time in terms of daily, weekly, monthly, what are the priorities, because time can easily just be spent away and not spent on the right things. So I'm pretty structured as to how I do that to make sure that I'm spending time on the right things, because there's many other things that can emerge, and part of leadership is responding to things as they emerge. But you can't respond to everything. You've got to stay on your priorities at the same time.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing
Pleasure.
with us today. It's been really interesting to learn about your career journey, everything that's happening here at the Smith family, everything you do outside of it. It's an amazing organisation, and we absolutely love working with you guys. You've got a team of great, as you said, you've got a fantastic team behind you. Looking forward to hearing what's happening for the rest of the year, and yeah.
Thanks, Alex. And thanks for your time today, and thanks for your support as an organisation as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Great.